King Ivar the Boneless, a great Viking warrior. Ivar was all of these things, as he was the veteran of 100 battles and a mastermind behind all his army's victories. And this is his story. Today I'll take you to the 9th century Britain and Scandinavia, also known as the Viking Age. It was a time for men of ambition, men of the sword and killers, in a time where the flames of war were ever aware. The boneless child Ivar Ragnarson, who was born in the 9th century, was the son of the legendary king and warrior Ragnar Lodbrok and the seer Olslok. Because his parents were legendary figures in Scandinavian history, Ivar would have to excel in order to set himself apart from both his father and the legendary grandfather Sigurd, who is credited with killing the dragon Fafnir in the Ragnar saga. Ivar's bonelessness was caused by a curse placed on him by his mother, Aslak, Ragnar's second wife, who possessed the powers of sorcery and foresight. She forewarned her new husband that they must wait 3 nights before getting married, but Ragnar was overcome with lust and did not heed her advice. The saga states that 3 nights together, but still apart, shall we bide nor worship the gods, as yet from my in the Ragnar saga. It is stated that Ivar was unable to walk and had to be carried everywhere, but this is a later source. Another straightforward explanation is that he may have been double jointed. Finally, he may have been born with weak bones. His name may have originated from the Latin word for hated, as he was despised by Christians throughout Britain because it was rumored that he would torture them to death if they did not renounce their faith. However, his curse could have been any number of things, including his hatred of Christians and his wicked ways towards them, his weak bones, or perhaps something entirely different. When he was still a little lad, Ivar had his first obstacle in life, since his father Ragnar had made many enemies during his military operations. Ragnar, believing himself to be in need of all resources, turned to borrowing assistance from people of all ages. He crowded the strong and the feeble together and was not ashamed to insert some old men and boys among the wedges of the strong, so he first tried to crush the power of the Scanians in the north. Saxo Grammaticus wrote that the Jutes and Scanians were kindled with an unquenchable fire of sedition. The rest of Ivar's childhood isn't mentioned in history, but when he was an adult, Ragnar used him as a guide because he was familiar with the region around York. From there, he led his army into a 3-day battle in which he defeated King Eila's forces before retreating with the rest of his army. The battle cost many lives to the English and few to the Danes. After Ivar traveled with his father Ragnar and his brothers to Ireland, Ivar would meet up with his brothers Sigurd and Björn, for retribution had brought them together. This was the greatest Viking army to set foot in England, and they became known as the Great Heathen Army, who were personally led by Ivar and his brothers late the following year, once Ivar and his brothers had defeated King Eila. Sigurd and Björn had a fleet of 400 ships and openly declared war against him. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle states that after installing a puppet ruler named Egbert in Northumbria, Ivar ruled northern England for 2 years. In 868, Ivar's great Heathen army moved south from York and established its winter quarters in Mercia at Nottingham. This marks the first known threat to the Mercian heartlands. Ivar realized he was outnumbered and could not hope to win a battle, so he once again used his cunning to secure a peace, which turned out to be the Treaty of Nottingham, Henry of Huntingdon. King Buthred of Mercia sent for assistance from King ETHELRED of Wessex and his brother and heir Alfred, who would later be known as Alfred the Great. An answer from Ivar was documented in writing about 250 years later. Ivar returned to York and stayed there for a year with all cruelty under the guise of peace before crossing Mercia again with his army and brother Abba Ragnarsson. King Edmund, upon learning that Ivar was traveling to his lands of East Anglia, offered him joint kingship. The fortress, which was a British fortress and the ancient capital of Strathclyde Kingdom, had successfully resisted attacks from the Picts, Scots and Angles over the years. But according to the Annals of Ulster, Ivar and Olaf besieged the fortress for 40 days until its water supply ran out and then raised the siege. It was a joint attack with Olaf sailing up the Clyde with a large fleet of dragon-headed boats. Ivar was a living legend, just like his father, the destroyer of kings and a curse on royal bloodlines. Yet he was never content to rule, since he was constantly seeking for new lands and adventure. Ivar returned to Dublin in 871, where he reigned as king of Northmen throughout all of Ireland and Britain until his death in 873. The cause of death is unknown, but many believe it was brought on by his curse. According to legend, Ivar had his body brought back to England at his own request and buried on the coast in order to serve as a talisman to prevent further foreign invasion of his kingdoms. Ivar was no doubt a cunning man who personally wiped out a big part of England. So let's recap Ivar's greatest feats. In 865, the great Heathen army, led by Ivar, invaded the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy. The Heptarchy was the collective name for the 7 kingdoms: East Anglia, Essex, Kent, Mercia, Northumbria, Sussex and Wessex. The invasion was organized by the sons of Ragnar Lodbrok to wreak revenge against Aella of Northumbria, who had supposedly executed Ragnar in 865 by throwing him into a snake pit. But the historicity of this explanation is unknown. According to the saga, Ivar did not overcome Aella and sought reconciliation. He asked for only as much land as he could cover with an ox hide and swore never to wage war against Aella. Then Ivar cut the ox's hide into such fine strands that he could envelop a large fortress. In an older saga it was York, and according to a younger saga it was London. Late the next year, the army turned north and invaded Northumbria, eventually capturing Aella at York in 867. According to legend, Aella was executed by Ivar and his brothers using the blood eagle method, a ritual method of execution of debated historicity whereby the ribcage is opened from behind and the lungs are pulled out, forming a wing-like shape. Later in the year, the army moved south and invaded the kingdom of Mercia, capturing the town of Nottingham, where they spent the winter. King Bungred of Mercia responded by allying with the West Saxon king Ethelred of Wessex, and with a combined force they laid siege to the town. The Anglo-Saxons were unable to recapture the city, but a truce was agreed whereby the Danes would withdraw to York. The great Heathen army remained in York for over a year, gathering its strength for further assaults. Ivar and Ubba are identified as the commanders of the Danes when they returned to East Anglia in 869, and the executioners of the East Anglian king, Edmund the Martyr, for refusing their demand that they renounce Christ. The precise account of Edmund's death is unknown. However, it has been suggested that his capture and execution at the hands of the sons of Ragnar is likely to have occurred. Now, the death of Ivar the Boneless. The Anglo-Saxon chronicler ETHELRED records his death as 870. The Annals of Ulster describe the death of Ivar in 873. The death of Ivar is also recorded in the Fragmentary Annals of Ireland under the year 873. The cause of his death being a sudden and horrible disease is not mentioned in any other source, but has raised the possibility that the true origin of Ivar's Old Norse nickname lay in the crippling effects of an unidentified disease that struck him down at the end of his life. In 1686, a farm laborer named Thomas Walker discovered a Scandinavian burial mound at Repton in Derbyshire, close to a battle site where the great Heathen army overthrew the Mercian king Burgred of his kingdom. The number of his partial skeletons surrounded the body, over 250, signified that the man buried there was of very high status. It has been suggested that such a burial mound is possibly the last resting place of Ivar the Boneless. According to the saga, Ivar ordered that he be buried in a place that was exposed to attack, and prophesied that if that was done, foes coming to the land would be met with ill success. This prophecy held true, says the saga, until when William Bastard, William I of England, came ashore. He went to the burial site and broke Ivar's mound and saw that Ivar's body had not decayed. Then William had a large pyre made upon which Ivar's body was burned. Thereupon, William proceeded with the landing invasion and achieved the victory. And if you want to be victorious, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment down below which legendary Viking you want to see next. Also, click the video you see on screen now to keep on watching our Viking content and find out more about the next legendary Viking.